Okay, we might get started because we do have a lot to cover today, and I don't want to run over time. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today for the third and final event in our three-part webinar series from the Olive Wellness Institute. My name is Sian Armstrong. I'm a dietitian working at the Olive Wellness Institute, and I will be your host for today. So before we begin, the Olive Wellness Institute would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Also, before I introduce you to our wonderful speakers, I'll quickly run just through some housekeeping items. So after the presentation today, we will have some time for a Q&A with our speakers. So please pop any questions that you have into our Q&A box and not into the chat box. So if your questions are also for a specific presenter, it'd be great if you could also just add their name so I know who to direct it to. Now, we are recording this webinar today and we will upload it onto our Olive Wellness Institute website as well as email it out to everyone as well. So don't worry about that. If you miss anything, it will be recorded. Okay. So let's talk about today's exciting topic, which is from tree to table, the journey of extra virgin olive oil. So we know that amongst health professionals, extra virgin olive oil is well known for its health benefits. However, less is known about that journey of growing olive trees through to producing high quality extra virgin olive oil and how important that process is to the resultant taste, quality and healthfulness of the oil. Today, we are so lucky to hear from our two expert guest speakers, Claudia Guillaume and Emma Stirling, who will take us through this journey, including the sensory characteristics of extra virgin olive oil, as well as the culinary nutrition aspects. Now, to introduce our speakers, first we're going to be hearing from Claudia Guillaume. Claudia is the General Manager of the Modern Olives Laboratory, which she came over to Australia from Argentina to set up in 2006. Claudia is a food scientist with over 20 years experience in olive oil testing and is an approved chemist of the AOCS. She represents Australia in the International Olive Council, Codex and ISO as a technical expert. So we're really lucky to have Claudia here with us today. She's got extensive experience in chemical and sensory evaluation of olive oil and olive derivatives and has carried out lots of trainings and judgings in this area. And she's also been invited to speak at many national and international conferences and has published numerous papers in respected scientific journals. Then our second speaker today is Emma Stirling. Emma is an advanced accredited practicing dietitian and the director of Scoop Nutrition Consultancies. She is also an academic specialising in food science, gastronomy and culinary nutrition. Emma is currently the culinary nutrition science practice lead at Australian Catholic University, where she's really leading the way in creating a new suite of offerings for chefs, nutritionists, dietitians, health professionals, and many more. And we are really lucky to have Emma here today, and she's really recognised as one of Australia's leading and innovative dietitians in this area of culinary nutrition and nutrition communications. Okay, so let's kick off with our first presentation. So Claudia, I will ask you to please turn on your video and I will hand over to you so that you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you so much, Shine, for your presentation. So I'm going to start my screen at the moment. Okay, can you see properly?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about this beautiful product that we all know and we love so much from different aspects. So the journey of extra virgin olive oil. So, of course, I cannot start talking about extra virgin olive oil without briefly explain what it is. So, it is the oil obtained from the fruits of the olive tree, but only for mechanical or physical conditions. So it is not any thermal conditions or any type of treatment that actually could alter their composition. So it is like we squeeze an orange, and we get the juice from that. So exactly the same happened in that product. So, and if we go a little bit deeper, so we found two main components. So around 98% of that juice, it is fat, or what we call in chemistry is the saponificable matter, which mainly is all the triacylglyceride and all the fat content. And only 1.5% it is the minor component. The minor component is why this product is so special, because there is where all the antioxidants and all the goodness, the flavor, and everything from the oil is. If we talk from the fat, also has a lot of health benefits and properties. So it's one of the only fat which has so much unsaponificable, unsaturated acid, like oleic acid being the main one, more than or around the 70% of that, which make the oil very stable. So only around 13% of the polyunsaturated, which also are very necessary, they are essential fatty acids that we need in our diet. And then around between 13 and 50% of saturated fat. So as I said before, so the main things why this oil is so special is because all the pigments, all the vitamin, the antioxidant, the sterols, all the things that actually bring goodness and health to our dishes as well. How we make it? So we harvest, we collect all the fruit, sometimes we wash, and then come to the crushing, the malaxing. That in the malaxing is when all the paste got together, and it's actually where the flavor are infused as well with everything around the fruit. So the fat at itself within the cell doesn't have any flavor or any taste. Everything that's happened in the malaxing process is what actually make the oil with that flavor and with that taste that we all know. After a period in there, which is a very critical point of the processing, we need to separate that oil from the rest. So go through a centrifuge or a decanter, and everything that is no oil or water go into the pomace, and all the rest go to another separation where the water go in one side and the oil go in another side. As you can see, it's all mechanical process. Is not any chemical involved, not any temperature or any harsh process involved in the extraction. And because of that is what we have different grades. So as I showed before, so we got here to the oil. This oil could be from different grades. And we are in the first part of this graph here, we're saying natural oils. So depending on the quality of the oil, which actually is all the chemistry and the sensory property together, so we are going to have different grades. The best quality is going to be extra virgin olive oil, which actually allow until 0.8 of free fatty acid or free acidity, and of course no defect found or no negative sensory attribute found in the oil. If that does not comply, it is a lower quality oil, and actually it's going to be virgin. That could be until 2% of FFA and could have a slight sensory defect there. Sorry. Then the last one, and actually that is not for human consumption, it is lampant oil. So if the oil become really high in acidity for anything that could happen to the fruit, so we cannot put in the bottle. So that need to be a further process, which is sent to refinery to refine the oil to be able to put in the market as refined olive oil. Then it is also another category that for many, many years has been very, very confusing, which is called olive oil. Olive oil, actually, it is a mix of normally virgin olive oil or low quality extra virgin olive oil with refined olive oil. So that has have a lot of problems to the consumer and very difficult to actually identify because many years ago you could call pure olive oil. The people thought that olive oil was actually better from the extra virgin olive oil. So olive oil, it is a mix of refined, which is further processed oil, with a tiny bit of virgin or extra virgin olive oil, which actually are the one with the health properties. And then is another part of oil that I hear quite a lot as well. The people ask me about the Olympus oil, and I'm back here to show where that comes from. So here after the decanter, sorry, I'm pointing and you don't see what I'm pointing. So here after the decanter, so it comes everything that is not oil. So it is all the flesh, the pip, everything that is not the oil and water portion. So after that goes, so it is still some oil there. So there comes a chemical extraction of the oil, similar to any seed oil. Yeah, when they use Exxon or any big solvent to actually extract all the oil, make the paste, this paste very exhausted and remove all the oil from there. And of course that then need to be refined to be able to put into the market. And that is what is called olive pomace oil. Got nothing to do with the olive oil. So it is a chemical extraction solvent after the byproduct of the extra virgin olive oil extract. And of course, you cannot consume extra oil, so you have to refine. And then also to the refine, because it doesn't have any flavor or anything, so they add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. And the people confuse quite a lot between the olive pomace and the olive oil. And many people think that with olive pomace, they are consuming olive oil. It's not. Yeah, so it's completely different. It is exactly a sign that any seed oil is not any health benefit into it and got nothing to do with consuming extra virgin olive oil. So many factors got influence in the quality of the extra virgin olive oil. So I'm going to try to summarize in an easy way them. So we can divide into everything that is agronomical factors or the processing and storage factors. The agronomical factors are a little bit more difficult to control than the processing factors. So variety or the genetic got a huge impact in the quality of the oil. The environmental condition got a huge impact as well. And those are quite hard to control. Even if we are starting, of course, we can choose the varieties that we want. We can choose the environmental conditions that we want. But normally in the crops, those conditions are hard to predict and control. Crop management is something that definitely can be controlled. Everything that is pest, everything that is disease, if we irrigate or not, depend where we are, how to harvest, how to transport the fruit to actually making sure that we always maintain all the good conditions to produce a good quality extra virgin olive oil. Then the processing and the storage condition as well are really important and got a huge influence. So the method, how you extract the oil, how you do it, how you control your process. The storage conditions of the oil, of course, you can make a beautiful oil, but then if you don't storage properly, the quality is going to deteriorate as well. So how we handle all the oil in transport, all those things. And the quality of the olive oil, so how we define, it is basically through the chemistry and the sensory. So we need to have a good chemistry to start with. And when we talk about good chemistry, so always is associated to the harvest and the transport. The quicker that we process the fruit, we harvest, the better quality the oil is going to be. So that be healthy fruits, that be in the optimal harvest time. So it's very important that we don't harvest so early, or it's very important that we don't harvest so late, because the deterioration and the quality of the oil is going to decrease. And sometimes we say, no, the earlier the better, but actually the flavors and the chemistry has not been finished and the flavor have not developed, and you are not getting the best that you could get from your fruit just for not harvested on the right time. And that is linked to the maturity index of the oil, depending what we want as well. We want more riper flavor, we want more greener flavor. And that is where the good aromas and the flavor intensity also come in place. So we need to find a balance and complexity to the oil, and that again come linked with the optimal harvest and the varieties that we choose. And of course, we have to cover the expectation of the consumer. So because that's, at the end of the day, also it is perceived as a quality. So we say that a product is got really good quality if actually cover our expectation about that product. Quality consistency is very important. Because as a consumer, so I'm expecting that every time give me the same quality in your products. So oil style and again, customer expectations are really important. And of course, shelf life, to making sure that always we are giving the grade that the people is paying for. There are many factors that influence in the sensory part. But as I say, so everything is very linked to the chemistry. We cannot separate them. We cannot have an extra virgin olive oil where the chemistry is really bad and expect that the sensory be okay. That is never the case. So I'm going to talk here with a few slides about the influence of the sensory or the factors that influence the sensory of the extra virgin olive oil, but that is based in our chemistry is really supporting that. One of the biggest things is variety. So the different varieties of the olive have different sensory characteristics. We can do the same a comparison like wine. So it is completely different flavor of Cabernet Sauvignon or a Shiraz or Tempranillo, depends what it is. So it's actually, you are going to experience different flavor. Here in olive oil, it's exactly the same. So all the different varieties got different characteristics, and depend of that is what it is important that you understand, so you make the flavor that actually you are looking for. Some varieties are more bitter, more dry, pungent. Some taste really in the green side, like a green grass or all the woody cut grass, very leafy. And some of the others are very in the fruity side, where we say oh, it's more sweet type of oil, so more the vanilla, fruity or nutty type of thing. So all those things got a huge impact in the variety, but also in the maturity index or the ripeness of the fruit. And why is important? That's again to cover our customer expectations. So if we really want to give a robust oil, for example, so we need to choose carefully all the varieties, because some varieties does not have the potential to give you a robust blend. So if you want something very robust, they got a lot of green characters, so you cannot go with varieties like Arbequina, for example, because it's a very light variety with tropical fruit, very creamy with very ripe fruit characters. So doesn't matter how you harvest, doesn't matter how well you manage that, you are not going to get those characters from those varieties. And that is why it's so important to understand what you have and to understand what you could do with that. So for the same, so don't create different expectation to the customer to assess the quality of your oil. As I said before, so the maturity index or the ripeness of the fruit, it is very, very important. So, so you see there in the photo, so when greener the fruit is, greener is going to be the paste, and greener is going to be my oil. So, and that all is based on the maturity index or the ripeness of the fruit. So, the longer we leave the fruit on the tree, riper is going to be, and milder is going to be the oil at the end, and also more yellow. And all that makes sense because as the fruit is ripened, so it is decreasing the amount of chlorophyll. So that is why we have oils that are more yellowish with riper fruit than with green fruit. Color, it is not an indication of quality. Could be, and there are beautiful oil, really yellow, really ripe characters, and are terrible oils in the yellow and the ripe character as well. And the same happen with the green oil. Sometimes the green oil are like, wow, because the people is expecting, and because they see the color and try away, they start finding the grass, all the green characters there. But that is not an indication of quality at all. It's really easy to fake a green oil. The maturity index, which is really important, and briefly is going to touch base here, it is very important with the polyphenols. Polyphenols, as you might be aware, is an antioxidant, very powerful combination of antioxidants that we have in the extra virgin olive oil. They are linked to the maturity index and also to the health property of the oil. So when greener is the oil, so more polyphenols is going to have, and more stable the oil is going to be. As soon as the oil, the fruit is getting riper, so it is decreasing the amount of polyphenols, and of course is decreasing the amount of the shelf life of the oil. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but the polyphenols are very responsible for the flavor of the oil. So that they're responsible for the bitterness, for the pungency, or for the astringency of the oil. So they are extremely linked to the sensations that we are going to find in the oil. So, and they are very linked to the variety, to the ripeness, and also to the irrigation. So if you got your grove in areas where rain a lot, so it's very likely that the count of polyphenols is going to be lower than the same variety in an area which is very, very dry. And we also know, so which are the polyphenols that are responsible for all those characteristics. But one that maybe you have heard a lot lately that give the pungency of the oil is the oleocanthal. Oleocanthal is a polyphenol that has been discovered maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And that is because the particular sensation they give to you in the mouth. So give that tingling in the tongue or at the back of your throat. Yeah, and that is, it is really good to have that. Is an antioxidant, is demonstrate healthy property, but sometimes when it's too much also creates a very unbalanced oil. Anything that is too much, like really bitter, Like for example, in very green olives, we got really bitter oils and really pungent oils, which are really unbalanced and the consumer is not used to, and definitely don't assess that as a great quality oil. Other factors that influence quite a bit in the sensory is the environment. So there I show a map of Australia where we have all the plantations of olive oil, and you can see also within the different regions. Even the same variety, different places is going to have different sensory characteristic, because it's going to be different air moisture, different soil composition, different raining conditions or irrigation, as I mentioned before. The water definitely have an impact in the flavor. So, and that is because the really important role that the water actually play in the development of the polyphenols. So more water, less polyphenols. By consequence, the flavor is going to change. Could be less bitter or less pungent or less flavor to assess in the mouth. And also, of course, the temperature. The temperature during the oil accumulation period is the most important environmental factor that affect that characteristic. The olive tree need an X amount of hours with cold weather, but also they need a little bit warm weather to develop the biosynthesis of the fat. And that temperature in the critical month of the oil accumulation is very important. So that is why also in Australia, so we do have different times of a harvest. So everything that is in the north is going to start first, then everything that is in the central area, and then likely everything that is in the south or Tasmania. So finishing the harvest quite late. How we assess, or what we expect of a good quality extraversion. We define in three mainly characteristic sensation. Yeah. So the first one is the olfactory sensation, which is referred to the aroma. And those has to be always pleasant sensation that we perceive through the nose when we are tasting food. And should be very pleasant, fresh, and really inviting you to put that food in your mouth. So when you're smelling the oil and you say, wow, so remind me to the green banana, to cut grass, to herbs, to tomatoes, and then you really want to keep assessing that oil in the mouth. So that is a really good indication of good quality oil. Doesn't happen when an oil it is bad quality. So you smell something, and even when you cannot identify what it is, doesn't invite you to keep having that experience and putting the oil in the mouth. So how we do it? So when we smell, all the air go to the receptor cells that are quite at the back of our nose. So sometimes we have to do, mainly when it's low concentration of the volatiles, they give us the aroma. So we sometimes have to do deep inspiration to try to get the aroma. It's not, strong aromas is easy, but really mild aromas. So we have to try hard to identify them. And then after that, so as every single sensation that we feel, so go try into the information to our brain to identify if we recognize that aroma, what it is, or is something that I have never experienced before, and then come back the information for us to process. Sometimes we cannot put a name what we are smelling, and that got to do because we don't recognize the flavor. Normally it doesn't remind us of anything. So it's something very, very new for us. But as soon as we start getting familiar with that, so we start putting names to those sensations that we are feeling. And sometimes I smell something and that reminds me to something that is very familiar to me, like something that my grandma cooked, but no one else can identify that aroma except that be in exactly the same place. Or maybe that reminds to other person to something very familiar for them that no one else could do. That is what I always say. It's very important that we associate whatever we are smelling to something, and then we are able to repeat and recognize that aroma. There are a lot of different aromas. Could be green aromas like almond, apples, banana, asparagus, tomato bush, and also is ripe characteristic, so we got candies, we got berries, plum, all those things, tropical fruit, where these are associated to the aroma. A lot of spices as well come up with riper fruit that they are not present in the green fruit.
Claudia, just
Yes.
a quick time notice, if we just got another minute or so and then we've got to move over to Emma, if that's okay.
No worries, I'm going to try
you.
to be really quick.
Thank you.
The taste we assess with the gustatory sensation. So when we taste the food, so the taste also should be very pleasant, fresh, and clean. That is one of the main characteristics. It has to be clean, cannot be fatty, cannot be greasy, even when we are drinking olive oil. And one of the main characteristics here, it is the bitterness. That is what we experience at the back of our throat. So there is where all the sensations or that bitterness taste come through. So it's not the acid on the side or the salty on the side. It is at the back of our tongue. And then the last one is the feeling. So, and it's really hard because it defines so many tactile sensations. Yes, so pungency or pepperiness is one of the most common one. And again, it's perceived at the back of your throat or sometimes like a tingling in your tongue. Other tactile sensation also is the dryness, so astringency. Some oils are quite dry and quite astringent. Leave our mouths really, like say, like drinking black tea. So also the viscosity, it is an important factor. So some oils are quite thick, some are quite light, and easy to drink. But quickly, I'm gonna go how we detect the poor quality oils. And how we detect that, as I say, so follow your instinct. If you smell and is something wrong there that is not pleasant, doesn't matter if you can identify what is or what is not. It is not fresh. It is not made with healthy fruit. So it's not gonna give you all the health benefits that you're looking for from that product. It's many, many factors which could affect that. So the temperature of the fruit, the condition of the fruit, if the fruit is, as I say, got a disease, has been damaged during transport, and also the time and the temperature during the processing that could affect or have a big impact in the quality as well. And if got any defect, cannot be called extra virgin olive oil. So if you find something wrong that is not okay, you are not getting what you're paying for, send back to the shop and ask for your money back. It's a lot of negative attributes that also can be identified in a different ways. So sometimes remind us to mushrooms, really humid, sometimes even to bacon skin, or really to tapenade. All these type of things are chemical things that are happening to the oil due fermentation of the fruit. So that is not okay, because that means that the oil has not been made from very healthy fruit. Sometimes also could be damage for frost, which also, even when it's not an offensive defect, still cannot be called extra virgin olive oil. And just to finish, then pass to Emma. So I would like to say that it's different oil style, which we have to be very mindful when we are creating, because according to that is what we can use it for. Yes, so normally if we do something light, or we say that our oil is light, so it has to be with light bitterness and pungency, has to have characters of tropical fruit, but not tropical, but ripe fruit, and cannot have any hard characters in the aftertaste. If we go a little bit more in the medium, so we can expect a little bit more bitterness and pungency and a little bit more depth in the palate with more flavor. That is normally what we call the multi-purpose oil, because actually you can use for anything that you may like. And then we got the robust oil that definitely has to have green character. Those are the oil that you really want to use dipping with bread, or when you want that the oil be the star of your dish, and definitely has to have a deep palate. And thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm gonna pass to Emma.
Thank you very much, Claudia. I'll just get my slides ready. Fantastic. Well, hello everyone. It's great to be with you. I hope you're eating lunch today as we get into our lunchtime webinar. And it's wonderful to be here, and I thank the Olive Wellness Institute for the kind invitation. So today, in a very short sort of 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to take you through this new field of culinary nutrition. It's very much an emerging field and becoming a distinct field. And those of you that are health professionals joining us, talking to you about some exciting new careers. And also if you're chefs or cooks joining us, lots of new careers for you too. And I'm going to talk to you about some new courses. But I'm going to illustrate throughout my talk how extra virgin olive oil is really a perfect recipe for culinary nutrition science. So when we look at culinary nutrition, it really is shaping up to be what we call an interprofessional practice. There's a whole lot of different people really interested in culinary nutrition as a medical intervention, as a dietetic intervention, and certainly as a way just to keep our population healthy. And so we're starting to see in the scientific literature and also into research that we're doing at ACU, really looking at trying to define our terms, trying to have, I suppose, the same cheat sheet so that we can all talk about this space in the same way. We're not just talking about home cooking or running a cooking class. We're talking about a lot things in a lot deeper level. So you will start to see a lot more terms coming through. You may even start to see, I hope in 10 years' time, maybe your GP will actually prescribe you some fresh food that you might even go to the pharmacy and pick up. And those kind of models are happening already in places like the USA. So let's have a little bit of a look and a future gaze of what might be coming to Australia. This is Olivia Weinstein, who's a dietitian at Boston Medical Center in the US, and they have a teaching kitchen embedded within a very large tertiary teaching hospital. And you can see they have a fabulous garden on their rooftop. And so if you're an inpatient in hospital, you might actually come and do, as part of your recovery or part of your rehab or part of your care, a cooking class. But this is also driving new training. So teaching kitchens within hospitals are also a training centre for, say, medical students or even allied health students like our dietetic students. And so we're seeing also new collaborations. So this is the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative out of Harvard University. So the idea of getting a lot of different interprofessional people together and driving the idea of teaching kitchen and culinary nutrition. And so we're seeing new conferences and new ways to experience conferences. This is me participating in an Altered Taste conference last year, where we not only had obviously serious lectures, but we also had a cooking experience together where we all delved into our kitchens with the Paul Bocuse Institute in France. And so there's fabulous new careers that are coming, things like working maybe for Spotify in New York and being the head of food and nutrition, and really driving things like corporate catering. And so this has been a sort of a dream of myself and colleagues, and it's my 2-year anniversary at ACU today. And so I'm thrilled to be able to now launch a postgraduate qualification for anyone in interprofessional practice to come and join us in a graduate certificate in culinary nutrition. And we have mid-year entry open currently at the moment. So when we look at culinary nutrition, we also need to think about, well, what are we really talking about? And ultimately, we're talking about the science of nutrition translation. Obviously, those of you joining us with a nutrition science background, we all talk about the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, but it doesn't really tell people how to cook, how to shop, how to purchase, how to eat food, and into what sort of dietary patterns, what cultural considerations do we need to think about. So we need to work hard as health professionals, as chefs, as educators, or anyone else that's joining today of an interest in extra virgin olive oil, really showing people the how-to of culinary nutrition. As Claudia has very eloquently already explained to you, we need to also be experts in sensory science, in food science, in flavour science. And we need to think about busting the myths along the way. I know that in your last series of webinars in this series, you've looked at the cooking properties of extra virgin olive oil. We absolutely know that you can cook with it. You should be cooking with it. You can cook to high temperatures with it. Its smoke point is not a good indicator. And because of those incredibly stable antioxidants, the polyphenols, they are really adding to the properties of this extra virgin olive oil. So it's a fabulous product to cook with. We need to bust those myths, those science myths. So we learn in our culinary nutrition course a lot about flavour matchings, about flavour pairings, and also how to do flavour assessments when we're developing recipes or testing different products. And we need to get better at teaching people around flavour pairings. We know we can get some beautiful infused oils, but even like exploring some interesting new flavour combinations that might be out there and trending at the time. And so I'd really encouraging everyone that's joining us today, there's a brand new, sort of hot off the press, a virtual sensory kit available on the Olive Wellness Institute website. And it gives you a really good background into olive oil tasting. And also what I want us to get much better at is those descriptive words to talk about flavour. And by going through this exercise, you'll be able to much better describe a light or a robust, or a different variety of extra virgin olive oil, but it will also give you great tips for all other work that you might be doing in culinary nutrition. So in culinary nutrition, we're also interested in advanced culinary techniques. We are interested in traditional techniques, whether it be fermentation reactions and the science behind that, whether in the middle it's using a sous vide to slow cook vegetables to retain colour, retain antioxidant activity within a cryovac bag and in a water bath. Or in the case of extra virgin olive oil, is it just knowing what to do and how can you make beautiful aioli by hand? What happens if your mayonnaise or your aioli splits? Understanding the very advanced cooking techniques. Also in culinary nutrition, it's about being experts in ingredients, in about procurement, in supply chains, in the provenance, understanding where did this ingredient come from, what was the conditions in which it was grown or harvested, and also about eating seasonally, of course, and sustainability. So I was very lucky just a few weeks back to visit a grove in northern Victoria and observe that harvest. And I'd encourage anyone joining us today, any chance you get out to actually see and appreciate our farmers, our producers, and where your food comes from is incredibly important. So I just wanted to illustrate today that idea of seasonality, and I really wanted to encourage you to get back to cooking and talk to you quickly about Castanaccio, which is one of my favourite cakes. Now, I only make this probably once or twice a year, and I always make it around this time of the year heading into winter. Because I often start to see the beautiful chestnuts arriving in my fruit and veg shops and at the markets. And so Castanaccio is a Tuscan chestnut flour cake. So it's a gluten-free flourless cake, but it's made with chestnut flour. So it can be a little bit hard to source chestnut flour. You'll have to go to a specialty food shop, but you can purchase it online from another number of chestnut farms. So I'd encourage you, Castanaccio, it's one of my favorites. And what I love about this dish is you get beautiful fresh rosemary from your garden as well. Obviously a really wonderful quality extra virgin olive oil, and pine nuts and nuts, and you bake this beautiful cake and then drizzle beautiful fresh extra virgin olive oil on the top of your cake afterwards. So that's a tip. Have a look for Castanaccio. Those of you on Instagram, I'll be posting my version of the recipe later today. So the other thing we need to think about in culinary nutrition is what's just trending around town. What flavors are people into at the moment? What are the dining out trends? And certainly we saw huge changes in COVID times. And what are the food trends? Because if we tap into these, we know that we can be more successful in our culinary nutrition interventions, in actually getting people back to cooking, back to enjoying home cooked food. So we've seen in recent years the roasted cauliflower trend, and there's a fabulous recipe for that on the website. There's also the idea of culinary trends with interesting flavour pairings, say something like a basil and olive oil ice cream, or maybe a very traditional recipe going to one of something very classic like a ricotta and lemon cake. And when we think about culinary nutrition, we also need to become experts in recipe development and recipe testing and recipe substitutions. So we need to be able to guide people on how to substitute things like take out the butter in a recipe and replace it with extra virgin olive oil. And again, there's a great tip sheet for you already on the Olive Wellness Institute. But I would say test and triple test recipes. If you're developing recipes, you really need to triple test them to make sure that you've nailed it. And so we also want to explore our flavour and sensory science, and it's called our multimodal sensory perception. How can we actually enhance the enjoyment of food whilst also giving good health, making the food either healthier or providing a healthy experience? So we can trick our senses to actually heighten our sensory perception of food in some really interesting ways. The other thing we want to tap into with flavour trends and culinary trends is just what's going on social media. You really can't avoid it these days. When Kylie Jenner, a little while back now, raved about an olive oil cake, the internet went bonkers because she cut this kind of crazy little wedge out of the cake, and everyone was like, just cut a whole piece of cake. But of course, some of the best influencers jumped on this bandwagon and very quickly were sharing recipes. And I think that's wonderful as a dietitian, that suddenly something that maybe a lot of people hadn't thought to do, suddenly there's a whole nother generation or a group of people out cooking cake with extra virgin olive oil. Of course, we've had the hummus wars over the years, and we all love Yodam Ottolenghi's recipes. So thinking about, I'm more interested in driving health through flavour and through taste and through great recipes. And this can come through in really surprising ways. I don't always see eye to eye with Gwyneth Paltrow over her nutrition science, but she's actually an incredible cook. So this is banya chowder, which is a beautiful dipping sauce you make for vegetables, which is extra virgin olive oil with a very strong anchovy base to it. And so I just love this as a recipe that Gwyneth says it's one of her top 3 holiday entertainers. But you can actually see she's really just encouraging people to have a huge spread of vegetables as she goes. So the other thing with culinary nutrition, it's about really appreciating traditional diets, about the, often what we talk now about is the food matrix, all that different synergy that's going on in a particular food with all the different nutrients, which we know is more health protective. But I'm actually wanting us to talk more about maybe a recipe matrix, which is kind of a new concept. Some of our traditional recipes, all the magic that's going on in that dish with all the different nutrient synergy going on. And of course, we don't want to just talk about nutrients. We want to talk about dietary patterns. So a really good example of this is sofrito. And sofrito is the heart of hundreds of dishes around the world. The idea of starting your dish with olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, with braising your onions, adding your garlic, and then your next ingredients, your celery, carrot, and then very many variations. And we call it sofrito in Italian. We would call it many other similar things in other languages, and I don't have the Syrian name for it just now, but that's the idea, that all these classic dishes that start with, so fry your onions and then your garlic. So when we actually think about this in depth and we want to research in this depth, we need to go back to good sources, and I use a lot of cookbooks in my teaching and in my research. And also we use a lot of, very old traditional books like this is Elizabeth David's Mediterranean Food Cookbook, really trying to look at the basis of things like a sofrito. And what I find is most interesting now as a health professional is that the secrets of the whole dish are coming out. So here's a couple of articles, and we'll share the links at the end around the bioactive compounds. So Claudia's talked to you about these polyphenols, these high antioxidant activity compounds, and how they're actually enhanced when they all work with that synergy in a dish like sofrito, the start of many, many of our great classic cuisines. So I'm just moving ahead quickly so we can keep to time. So plating and styling and being mindful around our meal, taking time to not just chuck something on the table, but actually plate it with great style. Creating ambiance is also really important in culinary nutrition. And so this is just in some examples of some work of our students that joined us this year in our teaching kitchens and the work that they've been doing. So finally, in culinary nutrition, we're very interested in behavior change and in dietary patterns. We really are interested in nudging psychology. If I put the vegetables in the first bain-marie at a boarding school catering environment, will more students put more vegetables on their plate? So that idea of choice architecture. And look at my beautiful photo here from the Venetian markets there. That market just makes me want to purchase more produce. So that's that nudging towards good health. But we also talk about gastrophysics. So in our course, if you would love those of you who want to come and study with us, we have a guest lecturer, Professor Charles Spence, who's from Oxford University. And Charles is a psychologist who specializes in gastrophysics. And gastrophysics is the idea of changing our sensory perception, our enjoyment of food through our whole multimodal sensory experience. So Charles does very interesting research, very interesting work with top chefs of the world like Heston Blumenthal, where they will change the color of a plate. Does a dessert on a pink plate taste sweeter than the dessert on the white plate? What sounds, Charles will talk to you about sonic seasoning, what sounds do you play in the atmosphere? It may not just be music. If you play the sounds of a crackling fire or of a woodsy kind of environment when you're having a Scotch whiskey, does the whiskey have more wood notes? So we can learn a lot from Charles, and we're very, very proud to have him as a guest lecturer in our course. So have a look up some of his work in gastrophysics. And so it's these twisting and constantly innovative in the field of culinary and gastronomy that we also want to embrace in the field of nutrition and health as well. And I love this quote from Heston talking about his gin when he talks about the basil, the rosemary, the thyme, the lavender and the juniper. To me, these are the aromas of Provence in a glass. But he says, why not just try it with that, a dash of extra virgin olive oil as well? And so thinking about really unusual combinations, the way we can trick our senses and really enhance our experiences of food in a healthy way as well. So ultimately, culinary nutrition is helping people or groups or our target audience or our intervention how to plan, how to shop, how to store, how to prep, how to cook, how to use, and how to style. And we can write a lot of tips, but we actually these days we know that we need to show people what to do. We need to show people that it's not really appropriate on the left of your screen to have your beautiful extra virgin olive oil out on the bench top, because it's going to be affected by the heat from your cooking stove. It's far better on the right to have it in a purpose-built drawer or away from the light so it doesn't oxidize. And you want to tell people to buy quantities that you can use within a good amount of time. So once opened, try and even use your quantities within about 6 weeks to keep it beautiful and fresh. And certainly we're very lucky to be able to have olive oils, extra virgin olive oils in Australia that have the use by date on them. So checking the use by date as well. And of course, we need to develop new content. So this is a dietitian friend of mine, Laura Ford, sharing her beautiful Hasselback potato recipe with a truffle-infused olive oil. Or maybe we need to get better at nudging people on the dining table. Often on my table, I have a little oil and balsamic vinegar kit so that people can choose their own dressing for their salad or for their vegetables. And maybe we can do this in very beautiful ways. Maybe we need to get better at our nutrition communication. Maybe somebody doesn't want a recipe. Maybe they want a guide to the beautiful, perfect vinaigrette. And maybe they need to know that they can actually make their own vinaigrette. They don't have to always buy salad dressing. They can actually make it at home. And finally, maybe if we can just get people in our teaching kitchen or in our rooms as a GP or at an event or somewhere to taste our ridiculously good extra virgin olive oil dip. And we encourage them to go home and when they're cooking, not to snack on a bowl of chips, before dinner, actually plate up a whole lot of beautiful vegetables and put out this ridiculously good olive oil dip. We will actually boost our vegetable consumption and encourage people through culinary nutrition activity. So culinary nutrition is the how-to. It's the showing people the way. It's not necessarily giving them a recommendation of how much extra virgin olive oil to have, because we know by giving them the tips and the tools that they will automatically get there. So that's me, and I'll finish up so we have time for a couple of quick questions. I'm very, very excited about our new emerging field of culinary nutrition. I encourage anyone that's interested in studying with us. We've got very, very flexible opportunities to navigate the course and to reach out. Thanks so much, Sian.
Thank you so much for your presentations, both Emma and Claudia. It was so fascinating really to hear the two very different ends of this extra virgin olive oil journey, right from the technical beginning and then through to that really practical other end when it comes to the culinary nutrition and the cooking. Now we are right on the edge of time, but because we are recording this, we might stick around for another 5 minutes or so just to ask a few questions of Claudia and Emma. And then if you have to run off, that's fine, but you can always come back and watch the recording if you do want to see this Q&A. So to kick things off, a couple of questions we've had coming through is one for Claudia. When it comes to the grading of olive oils, the slide that you had, where would BP grade olive oil sit? Now, I'll admit I don't know what BP grade olive oil is. So Claudia, let me know if you can answer that one.
Yes, so BP, it is a pharmaceutical grade. British Pharmacopoeia, it is the exact abbreviation of that. It is not a grade, it is just to a compliance parameter. So that is in the case that you want to use olive oil as ingredient for any carrier in any medicament or something that actually is used or regulated by Pharmacopoeia. It is olive oil is the grade. The only difference there is that you have to comply with an extra regulation if you want to use for that purpose.
Great, thank you. One more for you here, Claudia. Does blending affect the quality of the fatty acids?
Yes, absolutely. Every variety or every type of oil got a profile of fatty acids. So some could be more oleic acid or less linolenic acid or more saturated acid. So of course, if we do a blending, it's gonna be depend on the percentage of the blend, but it's gonna have an impact in the final composition of the fatty acid.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, Emma, some questions for you. We've got one around, do you have any tips for, using the different types of extra virgin olive oil? So around a light versus a robust, because we know, sometimes the tastes are quite different, as Claudia went through. So if you really quickly, obviously, have any tips on the differences there and how to use them.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, it certainly is, there are taste preferences. And if I was just cooking for my, a family dinner at home, I would obviously appreciate the taste profiles of my family members. My teenage son he has a particularly sensitive palate, so I think he's a super taster. So he doesn't like a lot of very robust flavors. I tend to kind of dial things back for him. But my preference, I love a robust extra virgin oil. So in the heat of the summer, when my basil is all through my garden and I cut those beautiful classic combo of my tomatoes into a beautiful salad, I definitely want a robust oil, don't I? I want to really have the extra virgin olive oil as the hero, and it will enhance the flavors of the other elements of that dish. But if I'm grilling some beautiful fish, I would probably choose to use a lighter oil. I don't want to mask the flavors of the fish. So it's pretty a basic concept, but experiment around. And if you're cooking for home, it's really a personal preference, and those of your family. If you're working in food service or in fine dining or in catering or in aged care or in a childcare centre or in all the other aspects where we would work in culinary nutrition, you really need to look at your target audience and probably test and get some sensory feedback. So there's many different sensory tests you can do with a small audience, from things like a hedonic scale through to a preference test. Do you like the dish with this olive oil, or do you like it with this one?
Yeah, fascinating. And Emma, as well, we've had some questions around, this is quite a newish area for a lot of health professionals who may not have learnt about culinary nutrition when they were going through their university degree. So how can people sort of keep up with these trends, or really, other than obviously coming to webinars like this, what are some ways that people can really get involved in this culinary nutrition trend and upskill themselves in this area?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sean. I mean, honestly, I've been a dietitian, for 30 years now, and I really have built with my colleagues a course that I would have only dreamed of doing. And so as a health professional and as a dietitian, I've always had a very food first philosophy. I've always looked to my professional development through food. So if I'm traveling, my husband travels for surfing destinations, but I travel for food. So I'm always going to a cooking class, or I'm always trying to upskill or learn. But I can do that in my background at Melbourne. I take my time to research new suburbs of Melbourne, new markets. I don't just go to my Footscray market, I go to Preston market. I want to see different cultural foods. I want to learn new ingredients. So that's one way, just to immerse yourself in a lot of different food experiences. Some of the following great chefs of the world. So the idea of just keeping abreast of the gastronomy and the culinary world as a health professional is really, really important, whether you just choose to watch MasterChef or you have a couple of SBS food, or I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm really enjoying, there's a London restaurant called the River Cafe that specializes in Italian cuisine. And so I'm loving their podcast at the moment. So I kind of immerse myself that way. But yes, certainly, sorry, my Siri is now going off. I certainly would encourage anyone that's interested. The graduate certificate is only the equivalent of 4 university subjects. Send me an email, emma.stirling@acu.edu.au, and I'd love to have a chat, because there's many ways, flexible ways to study with us. And we've actually just been awarded some federal funding. So the cost of the course has come right down.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I would love to have something like that available when I was first studying
I'm
to
so
be a
sorry.
dietitian.
Now Sorry, I've got my
All right,
Siri
we
going
can't
up in
hear
here.
it.
Yeah,
We can't hear what's happening.
That's great.
And Claudia, we've asked if there's any tips for how people can know that they're buying high quality extra virgin olive oil. How do people know what's good versus, there's quite a few different options on the supermarket shelf. It's quite a big category. It can be overwhelming. What should people be looking for to know that they're getting that really high quality extra virgin olive oil that, you've mentioned?
Yeah, so the first things that I normally do and say it is making sure that you buy Australian, so it is less time in transport and everything would actually help to the no deterioration of the oil or the impacts of the transport. Then always look at some dark glass, no clear glass, because the light, it is a huge impact in the deterioration of the oil. And those are mainly the two things before you are able to taste the oil. So then when you are at home, so taste the oil itself and keep being loyal or not to those oils that really deliver what you're looking for. So if you really found an oil that doesn't match your expectation of, you really think that is not okay, so don't buy it again thinking that the next time is going to be okay. So quality consistency is really important. And also, so we always need to get what we pay for. So extra virgin olive oil, so has to be extra virgin, no anything wrong, no quality deterioration there. So it's pretty much taste, even if you don't know what it is, but if it's something wrong that doesn't invite you to taste, it's not fresh, it is not okay.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I think a lot of people sometimes do tend to think the overseas extra virgin olive oil, because we think of the Mediterranean kind of country. So we think we should be buying from there. But that tip around buying Australian, I think, is something that's really important to really tell your patients and for people, us as health professionals, to learn ourselves. And just building on that, and something that Emma touched on in her presentation as well, around using the extra virgin olive oil within 4 to 6 weeks. Could you explain a little bit about why that's important, please? Sorry, Claudia, that one was for you. But
I thought that was
answer that.
I was going to say Claudia's much better at describing the breakdown.
So yes, as much as we love the extra virgin olive oil, so at the end of the day, it is a fat. So that recommendation that Emma did, so it is great, because actually as soon as you open the bottle, so air is able to come in through. So oxygen, light, temperature are our enemies. So because that start to deteriorate the antioxidants. So the antioxidants actually are the fighter with the oxygen. So they sacrifice themselves and capture the oxygen there to keep protecting the oil. But that's decreased their concentration. So it's going to start decreasing the concentration and the protection of the oil. So the oil eventually become rancid. And that's definitely, it is something that we don't want. We don't want free radicals in our body. We are fighting against them all the time. So never consume oils that they are rancid, because it's not helping to everything else that you are doing to actually get a healthy diet. So 4 weeks, 6 weeks, so that also always depend on your family. So if you are only 2, don't buy a tin, because that is going to last forever, and definitely you are not getting all the good properties but half of the tin down. And at the end of the day, so it's not cheaper either, because it is compromising your health. So buy something that is smaller and buy more often, and you're going to get the best of the quality and the money there.
Thank you. That's fantastic. All right. I think that's probably all we have time for, because we have unfortunately gone a little bit over time. But I just want to say once again, a massive thank you to our amazing guest speakers, Claudia and Emma. It was just really fascinating to have both of those sort of different ends of the extra virgin olive oil journey spoken about. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And for everyone, we do hope that you enjoyed yourself and you learned something new. If you haven't already, please don't forget to check out our website, which is olivewellnessinstitute.org. We have so much information on all things around olive products, including our brand new virtual sensory kit, which Emma did mention in her presentation. It really does touch on a lot of the things that we've spoken about today. And you can also follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And then finally, we have a really quick survey that we'd be so grateful if you could please complete after the webinar. It's just 6 questions, but it really does help us make sure that we're creating events and content that are relevant and useful to you. So we'd really appreciate it if you could please fill that out. That's all from us. So thank you very much for attending, and thanks again to our speakers. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you.